from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to our Thursday night edition of the program. Welcome, and our phone number, if you want to join us, feel free, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. And I want to get into a few things. There's a couple of interesting news items out there, and a bunch of clips that I want to play for you so we could start off our national conversation. And I'd say in the big news here, the big news is, well, I don't know where to start with this big news. You've got Mayor Adams in New York saying he's not quitting, that he's been indicted, and they've unsealed the indictment, so now we know what it's about. We know there's a huge hurricane that's hitting Florida, and let me see where else it might be hitting. I think it's concentrating on Florida, or at least in the south right now. But it looks like it's getting Florida's getting the brunt of it. Maybe a little bit of Georgia, maybe a little bit of the coast in South Carolina. I'll keep you up to speed on that if there's anything that breaks while we're doing the show live tonight. Multiple Iranians have been indicted for the hacking of the Trump campaign that happened a little bit ago. So we'll get into that. And there is a lot of talk about a looming strike at the ports. The longshoremen and others that are saying, you know what, we're not going to go to work. You're not going to unload the containers. Americans will not get their goods. And this is interesting. So we'll find out. Is this all talk so they can negotiate a better deal? I remember this happened a couple of years ago. Do you remember? I do. Same time, right? Right before Christmas. And everybody was saying, oh, my gosh, we're not going to have Christmas. We're not going to have Christmas. And I think we had Christmas. There might have been some issues with a couple of things. But for the most part, they were able to get their contract. And I think we got things back to normal. But I could be wrong on that. So we're going to get into a little bit of that as well. Anyway, there was a couple of clips of kids being interviewed on CNN. Now, this was very interesting to me because the kids are young, very young. Like, I don't know, third, fourth grade type of thing, maybe fifth grade, and very humorous, right? When you talk to kids, kids are always very interesting because they give you a different perspective, a unique perspective, oftentimes the most honest perspective. And Anderson Cooper has a report on this, and then I forget who, but one of the other reporters that's out in the field for CNN goes out and actually interviews these kids in a school, and it is quite remarkable. Listen to this.
The study found that Republican-leaning kids were more open to visiting a Democrat-supporting household. The Democrat-leaning kids were about 5 times more likely to say they would not want to go to a pro-Trump house.
Would they be okay with you going over to somebody's house who was really supportive of President Trump?
No.
No? And why not?
Because they know that he's not like black people, so they will not be happy to see me.
Would your family let you go over to somebody's house who's really supportive of Donald Trump?
No.
No, they wouldn't?
No.
And why not?
Because, my mom and dad don't like Donald Trump at all. Not a single bit.
Would you be okay going over to somebody's house whose family really likes Kamala Harris?
I think it'd be fine. It's just about the personality of the people.
Yeah, how about that for an honest kid? And again, they were all honest, right? They were like, look, my parents don't like Donald Trump at all. And this is the brainwashing of America's children. And these kids didn't just stop there, right? There were other instances of these interviews, and we got a couple of clips. But what I find interesting here is this political divide, which has always existed, right? And I don't want to seem to chip away at more of a divide because, some of the listeners of this program will say, oh, that Valdez, he's so divisive and divisive. And others will say, he just tells it like it is. And I'd say you're probably, you're going to believe whatever you believe. But my thought on this is the divide is always there. The problem was we had dressed up bipartisanship in a way that kind of served as a vaccine, if you will, right? It was an inoculation against discussion. And we did it in several ways, right? There was a massive turnout for President Reagan in the 80s. I don't really exist before the 80s for a lot, right? I was born in 78. So most of my memories are from the 80s and beyond. And I guess the big question here is, if you don't want people to talk about things that matter, like the silent majority, right? I think the silent majority showed up for Reagan and have proven to be, the Bible Belt has been solid in delivering a pretty conservative vote for whomever is courting that vote. Typically, it's Republicans. But this silent majority really, it rises up every now and again. And how do you get that silent majority to not talk to people, to not influence people, to not have any effect on people other than them having their own opinions? Well, I guess there's two things you can do. One is you can say, never talk about religion. And you can double down on that and say, never talk about politics. So if you don't talk about two of the things that impact you most in life, right, where your soul goes in eternity and what you end up paying in taxes, wow, what a sanitized version of life we're living when you don't talk about politics and religion. So that part is part of it. The other part is now you start teaching kids what they should think about a particular candidate by demonizing that candidate or that party. And that's been going on ever since I could remember. I guess the blessing for me was that I have ADHD and I've always seen things a little differently, just because I probably didn't grasp the point the first time around. So when people told me Democrats are for the poor and Republicans are for the rich, I was thinking, well, I'm already poor. I should try being rich. I'll like the Republicans. And it really was that simple for me. I thought they were, if they're for the rich and I want to be rich, that's the team I should be rooting for, or I should pay attention to. Plus, my mother was a Democrat, but she loved Reagan. So it made sense. And as you know, after Reagan, I think she was pretty much a Republican voter for the most part. But my point is, if you can inoculate people against politics and religion, and then you can malign any particular candidate or cause or political party, like if you can say MAGA extremists are a bunch of white supremacist racists, and we've heard this time and time again. The rhetoric comes from Kamala Harris, the vice president. It comes from Joe Barboso Biden, the sitting president. It comes from everywhere, from the left within the media, the left in academia. They're all over. Well, that's how you do it. And then you get those results. These kids saying, well, I don't know, whatever. But it doesn't shock me at all that the kids that come from the more conservative household are like, yeah, I'll go to a Kamala household. And it also doesn't shock me that the ones that are coming from the Kamala household are like, no, I'm not going to go to a Trump household. Why would I? My parents would kill me. So very interesting. Now, there's another funny tidbit where they ask a little boy, and they ask him, hey, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Kamala Harris? And you got to hear this response. Check this out.
What's the first word that pops into your head when you hear the name Kamala Harris?
Liar.
One-line king right there. Liar. This is a little kid, right? Little kids know what they're taught. And again, one can make the argument, this little kid has been taught to hate Kamala Harris. He's being taught to be a racist white supremacist that should not like a woman of color that's running for president. You could make that argument. I didn't get that. I hear him say liar. Why? Because she's a liar. I think we've proven that time and again on this program, and not making the case here that she's somehow a liar and 99% of other politicians are saints. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying she literally is off the charts with some of the stuff she's talking about. A, she's out of her league. She doesn't answer questions. And then she just doesn't tell the truth. Now, it doesn't stop there. They ask a really adorable little black girl and what her thoughts are. And this girl is showing, or I should say, displaying wisdom beyond her years in her response. Listen to this.
It'd be good for us to have a black woman as president for the first time in history.
Yeah.
But my vote's kind of still on Trump.
ultimate mic drop. I think this girl wins the prize, the trophy for breaking the internet. That's the best clip I've seen all day. She's there. She's so poised. She's so small, right? I can't imagine she's more than 9 years old. And I'm being generous. Maybe she's 8. And if she is, then, I'm not a good judge of aging little girls. But I had a couple, and she looks like a little girl. 2nd, 3rd grade, maybe 4th. I don't know. Anyway, that was classic. She's like, yeah, I'm thinking it'd be nice to have a woman of color, first black woman president, but my vote's still kind of on Trump. It just it goes to show you how much kids are paying attention. And I see kids in my day-to-day life, and I ask them questions. I see what's going on. And you can see that many of them have been brainwashed. They really have. They've been oversensitized for certain things to be, the purveyors of the left and the left's agenda without even really considering what's on the other side. So anyway, we'll continue our discussions on that, on El Trumpito, and so much more. The Iranian hackers that were indicted, the Adams indictment has been unsealed, and there's also this strike that's looming. And I want to get into that right now when we come back, because this has potential to be very disruptive to the supply chain, or it could be a lot of hype just for a union deal to get inked. And we'll see which way it goes. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, we continue our conversation. Of course, if you want to join us, feel free, 833-4-VALDEZ. And today there was a hearing in Congress regarding the assassination attempt on former President Trump. And there's a bunch of stuff I want to get to, a lot of interesting testimony there. The folks in Butler, the Butler police, basically throwing the Secret Service under the bus, saying these guys don't know what they're doing. And the Secret Service, of course, is, playing the rope-a-dope there because they don't want to take blame for anything. So we will get into that momentarily. But we have a clip of Mayor Eric Adams. I like to call him Elite Eric Adams because Elite Eric Adams yesterday gave this press conference, and I'll give you some audio on that later. But he gave another press conference today. And we've got a clip of that because he's, again, doubling down on how innocent he is, doubling down on how he is the victim. And again, it wouldn't be the first time I've seen somebody get persecuted politically. The problem here is I don't see Eric Adams as a popular political figure that needs to be persecuted politically. In my opinion, he sucks, right? His policies are absolutely atrocious. The city's in a horrible situation. And I can't imagine why he would think that somebody's going to try and oust him politically, through lawfare and malicious prosecution when his politics are just so bad he could get ousted that way. Anyway, listen to Elite Eric Adams.
From here, my attorneys will take care of the case so I can take care of the city. My day-to-day will not change. I will continue to do the job for 8.3 million New Yorkers that I was elected to do. Amen. And the 300,000 plus employees of our city government will continue to do their jobs, because this is what we do as New Yorkers. It's an insult to the hardworking people of the city that anyone would say that they won't do their jobs while this case proceeds in the background.
Okay, that again is New York City Mayor Elite Eric Adams, and he is in the midst of a historic investigation and first time ever of an indictment of a New York City mayor. And he says he's going to continue his normal day-to-day, which I would presume includes going to the nightclubs, maybe potentially allegedly collecting a bribe, maybe going out of the country to one of these foreign countries that's influencing him. I don't know. But I want to get to the bottom of this with somebody that's been warning us forever and a day. Curtis Sliwa, right? Curtis Sliwa is the founder of the Guardian Angels. He is a renowned New York City radio host, and he ran against Eric Adams, giving all New Yorkers an opportunity to run against this clown, and they didn't listen. Eric Adams needs to go down, and the guy to do it is Curtis Sliwa. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, my liberty-loving Latino friend, Rich Valdez, you're right. I've been warning people that the swagger man has no plan whatsoever but to get wine, dined, and pocket lined. But in this particular case, I must tell you, Rich Valdez, while the walls are closing in, Eric Adams is now claiming he is the victim. And in fact, earlier today, President Donald Trump gave him some tactical air support by suggesting that a year ago, when he followed the case of Eric Adams and the migrants, he said he knew he would be indicted too. And unfortunately, it's come true. So all of a sudden, you're going to find Eric Adams is going to embrace Trumpism if it can save his neck from going to jail.
I bet he's going to be dying to speak at the next Trump rally, talking about the weaponization of government, Mr. Trump. Yeah, I could totally see it happening. Whether or not Trump bites or not, I don't know. You never know. It's an election year. He might say, Eric, let's make a deal. You get me your people. I'll give you the platform. I'll help you out. You never know. I don't know. Do you think there's a deal to be made there?
Well, remember the first hip-hop mayor, because Eric Adams fancied himself as being the hip-hop mayor, loving to sample the product, the nightlife in New York City. The first hip-hop mayor in the United States was Kwame Kirkpatrick in Detroit. He was a thug and a crook. He ended up being sent to federal prison. And then a few years later, President Donald Trump gave him a commutation. And now Kwame Kirkpatrick is singing the praises of Donald Trump. So, hey, it happened to the first hip-hop mayor, Kwame Kirkpatrick from Detroit. It could easily happen to Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan.
Swagger man with no plan. I love that. Now, Curtis, I want to get into a little bit of this because while, you're a very funny guy and, you take everything you make light of everything. But the reality is that I think you're a very serious candidate. You knew the issues better than everybody else. And this is an actual serious situation, right? There's a real indictment here that was unsealed yesterday or today. It was sealed yesterday, and we know more about it. We know that there's a bribery charge in there. There's accepting foreign donation charge in there. And a couple others that they kind of doubled down on. What are your thoughts on the charges now that the indictment's actually unsealed?
Well, Eric Adams is a world traveler. Apparently, he's traveled Turkish Airlines to more different places than even God did, Morgan Freeman. Remember when Morgan Freeman did those commercials for Turkish Airlines? He said, "Hey, Morgan Freeman." He said it was like Kobe Bryant did it, Messi, the soccer player. Oh, he was a world traveler, courtesy of Turkish Airlines.
You got to love that. Folks, we're going to come right back with Curtis Sliwa. You don't know, check him out at curtissliwa.com. And we're going to continue getting into this indictment, historic indictment of Eric Adams, plus a little conversation on everything else that's going on in America at night. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue our late-night national town hall conversation with our guest tonight, Curtis Sliwa, the renowned radio host from New York City, former mayoral candidate, founder of the Guardian Angels Safety Patrol Group in New York City. And Eric Adams has found himself in the crosshairs of a federal indictment. They indicted him. It was unsealed today. And now everybody in the woodwork is coming out. They're all coming out saying they're not interested. Listen to this Black Lives Matter protester shouting at Eric Adams that he's a disgrace. This is not a black thing. This is a you thing.
This is Black Lives Matter Greater New York saying that this is not a black thing. This is not a black thing. This is a you thing. This is a you thing, Eric Adams. This is not a black thing. Your policies are anti-black. You are a disgrace to all black people in this city. The things that you have done are unconscionable. You hurt our schools, our streets, our children are harassed by the police. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. You can shush me all you want, but the people are with us. And this is not a black thing. This is a justice thing.
Now, Eric Adams getting heat again from the Black Lives Matter protesters. That sounded like Curtis Sliwa's buddy Hawk Newsom doing all that shouting with that megaphone. But it didn't stop there. Curtis Sliwa, I want you to check out one more clip of audio. This is AOC all out crazy, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And she's with reporters today saying that Mayor Adams must step aside.
Right now, I think this is squarely about Mayor Adams' ability to govern New York City and for the New York City governance to be fully staffed to serve the people of New York City. And frankly, under this constant stream of scandal, I do not know if the city will be able to even name replacements for all of these resignations and vacancies at this point. And so it is a very unfortunate time. We do not want to see this happening in our city, but unfortunately it is. And I think for the best of the city and so that we can continue to staff the administration of the city, it would be best for Mayor Adams to step aside.
So, Curtis Sliwa, you just heard it. You heard the Black Lives Matter protesters turning states, if you will, on Eric Adams. You've got AOC all out crazy, also seemingly turning on Eric Adams, saying, you know what, you should step aside. Is this her making a play for the mayor's race in the future?
No, she's not interested in that. It's too much of a bloodbath. But let's deal with Hawk Newsom first. Remember, he's the infamous Black Lives Matter leader in New York City who in the summer of George Floyd 2020, remember, would say over and over, we're going to burn this city down. We're going to burn it down. This guy promotes socialism. So, of course, he's going to be disrupting Mayor Eric Adams because they want to see socialists become the mayor. They already control the city council. They want this place to become Chicago, where you have a socialist mayor. So that guy is there. I mean, he drives around in a tricked-out Cadillac, brand-new Cadillac Escalade. Where do you think he got that money from, huh? And then you have AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the Socialists of America. She's just trying to pave the way for a socialist. They want to take complete control of New York City, the epicenter of capitalism, turn it into the headquarters for socialism, and destroy every great thing about New York City and drive people the hell out of here, whether they go to Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee, or parts unknown. She doesn't care as long as they leave here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Folks, we're on with Curtis Sliwa. Check him out at curtissliwa.com. And Curtis, now, do you think some of this ouster is coming from somebody that you call Andrew Faccia Bruta Cuomo, the son of the former governor Mario Faccia Bruta Cuomo, because he wants to run for mayor?
Absolutely. He's a political vulture hovering over Eric Adams, who's drowning, and he's not there to save him. Rich Valdez, you got to understand your audience. This is organized crime without dead bodies. Mm-hmm. Everything that you've seen in Godfather, Goodfellas, is in politics in New York City. The only thing you don't have as a result are dead bodies. Here's the same Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo. I call him the son of Mario Faccia Bruta Cuomo, King Cuomo II.
King Cuomo
and
II.
He has said, I would never do anything to harm Eric Adams. I would never do anything to run against Eric Adams. Are you kidding? These folks are backstabbers. They'll have a meal with you 1 minute and put the knife from the steak that he had just cut in your back and the neck. And sure, this Andrew Evil Eyes Cuomo who wants to get into a race. And remember, the two most identifiable names in any race would be Cuomo, the Democrat, and Curtis Sliwa, the Republican.
Outstanding. Curtis Sliwa, I think, listen, I'm hoping, I'm praying that Adams stays in the race and that he runs again and that you beat the tar out of this guy because at the ballot box, of course, because I think he's just, he's finally shown, I think, all New Yorkers, this is what we do, right? He was very critical of everybody that was taking exception to the sanctuary city policy. New York City is a sanctuary city. I remember that stuff like yesterday. Then he started to change his tune and say, "I never seen a problem I can't handle." And now all of a sudden he's flapping in the wind. This is the time. I smell blood in the water. You got to circle him and get him now. What do you think the likelihood of him running again is?
Well, he's going to try to survive the onslaught. There'll probably be superseding indictments on other levels. Oh, he'll try to stick it out. He'll use his complexion, his black complexion, as his protection and think that he can get 20%, which is the black vote. He'll stay in it. Hey, look, what's he going to do if he's out of politics? Nobody will give him the time of day. Nobody will give him campaign contributions. Nobody will contribute to his legal defense fund. No, Eric Adams loves to be wine-dined in parking line. And if he's in civilian life, none of that's going to happen. And if he goes to jail, just imagine the Trinity, the Troika, the Trifecta, R. Kelly, P. Diddy, and Eric Adams, the swagger man with no plan, the hip-hop mayor, all sharing the same cell. The question is, who will be each one's mate tag? Who will have to have the soap on the rope?
Don't drop the soap. Curtis Sliwa, stick with me. When we come back, I want to get your take on the 2024 election and everything else that's going on. Folks, we're coming right back with Curtis Sliwa.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
And I come from the middle class. Look, my mother raised my sister and me. She worked hard. She saved up. By the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. And, home ownership for too many people in our country now is elusive. Gone is the day of everyone thinking they could actually live the American dream. So part of my vision for the economy is let's deal with some of the everyday challenges that people face and address them with common sense solutions, such as affordable housing.
All right, amigos. So that is Kamala Harris on MSNBC yesterday saying the American dream is gone. Curtis Sliwa, if I had $1 for every time I hear that this girl grew up middle class, meanwhile her mom was like a nuclear biologist and her dad is a huge Stanford University professor, what do you think of this?
Well, it's just like her working in Mickey D's. Remember, she worked the fry station.
Right.
And that's something I know all about. I got to tell you, her apex was the debate with Donald Trump. She did better than anybody could have anticipated. She actually leveled the playing field. But it's been all downhill since. She hasn't been able to get any mojo in answering questions and even pretending that she has any knowledge in certain subject areas. It's almost like she ran out of gas. And now she's hoping that Coach can rescue the campaign coming up this Tuesday against J.D. Vance. Let's hope J.D. Vance doesn't talk about childless women with cats. Stick to the issues, hillbilly man. Don't start talking about women.
That was funny. Well, I think it went well with the base. It may not go well with the cat ladies, but it definitely went well with the base. Now, do you agree with her statement that the American dream is gone? Do you think it's on pause? It's on hold? Are we waiting for a resurgence of the American dream? What do you think?
Well, I notice people keep coming here. It ain't a nightmare yet. They keep coming here. They come here from all over the world because they want to live the American dream. No, the American dream has been put on pause because of Bidenomics. But President Donald Trump will bring it back. There's no doubt about it, except he's got to keep the people from coming back who want to realize the American dream. So remember, there is an American dream, and that's why people all over the world want to come here.
No. I agree with you. I think the minute the border dries up is the minute there's no American dream. I think we're on our way, though, on a fast track to not having an American dream if we keep giving out these debit cards with 20 grand on them to everybody who's coming through the border. Do you anticipate, do you think we're at the apex or the height of the Tren de Aragua gang from Venezuela? Is this the worst it's going to be, or do you think it gets even worse?
No, it gets even worse because now they're ingrained in especially the urban and suburban areas. They're going to continue to recruit. When they get locked up, their mission is to recruit in local jails, recruit in prisons. So they'll get stronger like MS-13 did, and before them other gangs. But Maduro he took a page out of the Castro playbook. In 1980, Castro said, release all the gangbangers out of the jails, the Mariolitos. They came through the shark-infested waters from Cuba to Florida, and there was Jimmy Carter, the Good Samaritan there to welcome them. He gave them food. He gave them everything free. And what a disaster that was in 1980. But now Maduro has done exactly the same thing. And unfortunately, their papachulo is Joe Biden, who's really ubats. He's titched. He's just out of touch with reality. But he's aided and abetted by these governors and mayors in sanctuary cities and states in blue areas. And that's why they're going to keep coming and growing in strength and begin to become a real problem for law enforcement all over the country.
Yeah, really well put. Curtis Sliwa, let everybody know how they can listen to your show, how they can keep up to speed with you and all the work that you're doing.
All you got to do is go to guardianangels.org. See the work we've been doing for 46 years, now in 13 countries, 130 cities all over the world. And if you want to hear me do my spin, all you got to do is go to WABCradio.com. WABC in New York stands for Always Broadcasting Curtis.
Always Broadcasting Curtis. You got to love that. Curtis Sliwa, sir, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. I thank you. My best to your family, Nancy, and everybody.
Oh, and my hands across America with the liberty-loving Latino, Rich Valdez.
Thank you, brother. God bless you, man. Talk again soon, hopefully. And, folks, we come back. We come back to your calls more and an update on what happened in the hearing today with the Secret Service and the Butler Police and everything else in between. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue. Lots to discuss tonight. I want to talk about a hearing that occurred on Capitol Hill today in Congress, where the committee that was looking into the assassination attempt on President Trump got into the nitty-gritty, bringing in some really interesting witnesses and asking a lot of questions. And let me see, former Secret Service agent Patrick Sullivan was at the hearing today, and he said that it was very unusual that there wasn't an overall command post. Listen to this.
So one of the things I'm struggling with is this idea that there wasn't a single unified command station on site. The Secret Service did not establish that. Is that atypical in your experience? Would there normally be one command and control station to unify command and communications?
Yes, that's very atypical. I am very surprised. Normally there will be an overall command post for the entire visit. Then each site will have what's called a security room where radio traffic pertinent to that individual site is controlled. And the command post, the overall command post, should be the state, local police, Secret Service, and other federal partners that may be assisting. So this is very unusual, that the way it turned out here at this site.
Very unusual. Wow. And again, that question was coming from Congressman Jason Crow. He's a Democrat from Colorado who apparently has a problem with this, and good for him for having a problem with this. It is atypical. I think the whole thing is weird. Right? We haven't seen a president get shot at or anything like that, I don't know, since Reagan. That was a long time ago. And they were able to thwart that back then. Thank God they were able to thwart it now. But what is good with this? Not a whole lot. Now, this continues, right? They have this back and forth. They're asking lots of questions, lots of very interesting witnesses. And now they bring in the commander, Ed Lenz, of the Butler County Emergency Services Unit, right? That's the county SWAT team that was on deck. And he says, guess who never checked in with him? That's right, the Secret Service. Listen to this back and forth with Congressman Mark Green.
So you were testifying earlier, Commander Lentz. Did I understand you correctly that you're the leader of the local law enforcement on the ground there, right?
Just the tactical units.
Okay, the tactical units. The first time you talked to Secret Service that day was when you needed them and you called them?
Correct.
Did anybody check in with you to make sure your guys were in the right place for the event?
They did not check in with me, but
they did not. Let me make sure I got this correct. The U.S. Secret Service is about to pull a security detail around a president at an event with a lot of people and a lot of risk, with a heightened risk from an international threat, and they didn't even check in with you to make sure your guys were in place and ready to go?
Correct, not with me.
And you're the leader of one of the tactical units covering this and had responsibilities on this site?
Yes.
I find that unbelievable.
Yeah, so do we, sir. Unbelievable, right? So the question is, will we believe it? Will we accept that all of these very, very... Listen, I have a lot of respect for cops. I really do. Why? I'll tell you why. Because cops are smart people. Maybe not everywhere. I can't vouch for cops in California. I don't know. I think I know one cop in California. But I grew up around cops in New York. Two of my brothers are retired from NYPD, and one of them kept going and became a Fed. And he's retiring soon. Or he may just have retired. He must put in his paperwork. And I'll tell you this. Some of the smartest people out there, I have a friend, retired New Jersey State Trooper, brilliant guy. I mean, book smart, tactically smart, life smart. They've been through so much when they're on patrol, when they're on the road, with different jobs they've had to respond to while they're on the job. And I can tell you, these are some of the most capable, apt people. And when you have these high-level cops saying that, oh, we don't know how, we didn't have a checkpoint, we didn't. This is them being incredibly generous to their brother in blue. The reality is, I don't believe it. I don't believe that there was an accident. I don't believe that they didn't have a checkpoint because somebody dropped the ball. I don't believe that for a second. I'll tell you what I believe. I believe they threw the ball over the fence and made sure nobody was looking at it to allow something to go down. Now, maybe that's the cynic in me. I am a cynic. 8 out of 10 times, if something bad happens to me, I'm thinking they meant to do it to me, right? That's just the New Yorker in me. But I hope I'm wrong. I pray that I'm wrong. We'll continue. We have more audio on this. We'll continue with that when we come back, as well as getting into what's going on with this port strike. Is this thing going to shut us down? Or are we going to go back to the COVID era where we can't get toilet paper or we can't get anything? Is there going to be a run on everything? I hope not. Anyway, folks, keep it locked right here. It's Rich Valdez, America at Night. We're going to continue the conversation, and there's a lot more to come. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of our program. If you're just joining us, welcome. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. If you're checking us out streaming online at richvaldez.com, welcome. If you're listening to a replay of this on the podcast, I'm glad you're subscribed and sharing this with your friends. And everybody else listening live, let's get to it. So, a couple of things I want to get into. El Trompito was in New York today, gave a press conference at around 4:30. We got some cuts of that. We'll play some of that audio in a minute. Mayor Eric Adams is doubling down after he was charged by the United States attorney that says that he did all sorts of bad things. He says he's not going anywhere. And we have Damian Williams, the United States attorney, at a press conference earlier today telling everybody exactly what happened with Mayor Adams. Listen to this.
Today we are announcing campaign finance, bribery, and conspiracy charges against Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City. As the indictment alleges, Mayor Adams engaged in a long-running conspiracy in which he solicited and knowingly accepted illegal campaign contributions from foreign donors and corporations. As we allege, Mayor Adams took these contributions even though he knew they were illegal, and even though he knew these contributions were attempts by a Turkish government official and Turkish businessmen to buy influence with him. We also allege that the mayor sought and accepted well over $100,000 in luxury travel benefits from some of the same foreign actors who arranged many of the illegal campaign contributions. These benefits included free international business class flights and opulent hotel rooms in foreign cities. The mayor had a duty to disclose these gifts on his annual public disclosure forms so that the public could see who was giving him what. But as we allege, year after year after year, he kept the public in the dark. He told the public he received no gifts, even though he was secretly being showered with them. We allege that Adams accepted these benefits knowing that they were given to him because of his position. And in exchange for some of those improper benefits, he intervened in the New York City Fire Department's inspection process for a building owned and operated by the Turkish government, allowing it to open even though it had not passed the fire inspection.
So that is elite Eric Adams. They're throwing the book at him, it seems. And good for him. You know, that's the difference of being a radio host and working in government. This is why when people, I get notes a lot. I don't know why, but people send me notes. Oh, my God, we need you to run for something. Run for office. Run for this. I'm thinking, I'm running away from all that stuff. I'm not going to run for office. Why would I want to do that? Do you see all the unfair rules that are put on people when they run for public office? You can't accept a free flight to a foreign country? I got news for you, folks. If somebody sends me a free flight to a foreign country and a free hotel stay in exchange for the influence that I have with whether it's my social media following, that I'm heard on the radio, whatever the case may be, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. And it happens, right? This is lots of people in radio and television. They get hired to give speeches, right? They get an honoraria. They get their travel paid for. These are very normal things in this business. Now, I understand it's not a normal thing in that business, right? So Adams is in the wrong business. But I'm going to submit to everyone, you know, who would want those limitations on you? I get it. If you're a public official, it looks wrong. It looks like there could be the appearance of an impropriety. So that's why that's there. I get that. You don't want to look like somebody's giving you gifts in order to influence you because you have say over something. I have say over nothing, right? I don't have any say over any policy, legislation, executive authority. I don't have it. All I have is my opinion, right? That's it. So, yeah, Eric Adams, you're in the wrong business, brother. Now, can he be a broadcaster, communicator type of guy? I don't know. Do you think Eric Adams would do well on television? I don't know. I can barely understand what he's saying half the time. I spend most of my time laughing at the guy. So I don't know. Maybe he is entertaining from that perspective, but it's more of laughing at his expense, not laughing at humor. But whatever. Anyway, that's Eric Adams. Now, there is a reality, and again, I'm not saying this is the case with him, but sometimes the government does get weaponized against people. That's true. And yesterday I played a clip of audio from Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett. She's the delegate representing the Virgin Islands, but was born in Brooklyn, just like me. And Stacey Plaskett is really good at this stuff. She's very reminiscent to the style of lying that you heard from Adam Schiff. He can tell a bold-faced lie right in your face, and you might believe parts of it because it's just so believable. Anyway, she's that level of gaslighting. And Stacey Plaskett admits that the Department of Justice and the FBI are weaponized to go after people with opposing views, such as Trump. Listen to this.
What is the point of this subcommittee? Because it's necessary for the public and the media to hear, to try, and provide cover for the eradication of the Department of Justice and the FBI. We are having these hearings so that you become immune. You become inured to the notion of the removal of the FBI and DOJ, so that those agencies are no longer there to serve as a check against white nationalism, great replacement theorists, Christian nationalists, white fragility, fascists, and the twice impeached, convicted felon, former president and would-be dictator, Donald Trump.
Now, hold on a second. So she's saying that the Department of Justice and the FBI exist to go after fascists, white nationalists. Last I checked, none of these things are a crime, right? Having a political ideology, I don't espouse that. I disagree with it, and I'll call you out all day. But you're allowed to be a fascist without going to jail, without being involved with the DOJ. You're allowed to be a white nationalist, a black nationalist. How many black nationalists are out there? There's so many black supremacists out there. They're usually celebrated. That's my point. And she finalizes this or punctuates it with saying the would-be dictator Donald Trump, saying that's how we check Donald Trump with the DOJ and the FBI. The DOJ and the FBI do not count as a check on a political opponent that you don't agree with. That's just not the case. I've never called for the FBI or the DOJ to get into a head-to-head match with any political opponent. And this is why I reject the QAnon stuff as voraciously as I do. Because it somehow, it promotes this idea that, well, if the bad guys are doing bad things to us, then we should do bad things to the bad guys. And that's counterintuitive for me. A, because of the faith that I aspire to, right? I want to be the best follower of Jesus I can be, and doing that isn't going to help me get any closer, right? It really isn't. Saying that, we're going to have to break the rules. It's unconstitutional, this idea that the military is going to round people up and put them in Gitmo and do whatever and treat civilians as if they're enemy combatants. I mean, the whole thing has no basis in truth. Yet there's people out there. Matter of fact, on this program once, and it was kind of like a little sneak attack for me. I brought a guy on to talk about country music. And, there was like a country music song on the conservative side of the aisle that was doing really well. And this guy was a country singer. So we brought him on. And out of nowhere, he just starts talking about, United States Code 2454, citing these numbers. And he was going really off topic. And I went with it for a little bit. But at one point, he was talking about how, I think what he mentioned was that the inauguration was not an inauguration, but according to his understanding of military code, that the inauguration was actually a funeral ceremony, and that this was a coded message to people, and that Biden was not, in effect, accepting the role of president at the inauguration, but it was symbolically a funeral of his because it was an actor playing Biden, and Biden had actually been put to death. I mean, the stuff that he was suggesting was crazy, and he didn't say all of that on this program. And honestly, I'm I'm always on the fence of people going down these rabbit holes because that's like a lot, right? You know, people catch radio in snippets, right? It's not like a YouTube video where you can go back and rewind and pause and, you know, yes, if you're doing the podcast, but if you're listening to live radio, you jump in your car and you hear Rich Valdez talking to some guy that's saying that Joe Biden's actually an actor. He's not really the president, this, that, and the third. This is a little bit off the deep end for me. Now, right now, as I'm saying all this, there's a handful of people out there that are going, oh, I used to like this guy. Forget it. I'm done with him. That's okay. That's okay. I don't mind if you're done with me. That's a part of the pool that is too deep for me to play in. Honestly, I'm happily secure and bound to this little world that I live in, where I can only deal with the things I can prove. And last I checked, Joe Biden is more stretched out than Nancy Pelosi, right? His jowls are tighter than Hunter Biden's. He's been stretched out a million times. He's got tons of plastic surgery. So when he doesn't look like he did 20 years ago, it's because he looks better, right? That's really all the case is. So does Nancy Pelosi. So do a whole bunch of these people out there. Bottom line is, you have to deal in truth. You have to traffic in reality. And we can't go off the deep end. And Stacey Plaskett, she goes off the deep end here, saying that we're going to use the government to go after the people that we disagree with. And we don't do that. This is the land of the Fourth Amendment, of all the amendments, right? The Constitution. We have rights. And the notion that these rights would be suspended because of that's the only way to do it, or because that's the good guys are doing it, not the bad guys. I got news for you. When the good guys start doing exactly what the bad guys do, they're not the good guys anymore. And ultimately for me, not to get on any type of high horse or get preachy, but there's a verse in the Bible. It's a pretty universal one, I would think. And it says, you don't repay evil. You don't repay evil with more evil. You repay evil with good. That makes sense to me. So why on earth would I do that? Why on earth would I go to the pre-Jesus days of the Bible when he said that he came to fulfill the law? And that an eye for an eye is no longer. But if you get smacked, turn the other cheek. Forgive 7 times 70, right? These are all these doctrines here that are designed to help you live. So, Stacey Plaskett, no thank you, ma'am. No thank you. I don't need you. Thanks for admitting that you're weaponizing government and going after Trump. But ultimately, nobody wants that. People want liberty. People want freedom. That's exactly why we get the critique we do. When people say, one good thing about the Democrat Party is that they stick together. I'll say one good thing about conservatives and libertarians and country club Republicans and everybody in the big tent of the Republican Party is that they don't get along, that they don't agree, that we actually have heterodoxy and diversity of thought. That, to me, is the brilliance of it. The big tent is what it's all about. The fact that we can all disagree and still have so many areas where we do agree, unlike the lockstep goose walk of the left. I don't want to be part of a party that's like the left, where we all agree. Absolutely not. Anyway, I will pause here, and when we come back, we'll get a clip of Joel Barboso Biden. Joel Barboso Biden is also admitting that Kamala could do anything that he could do because he gave her all authority. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll play it now before we go, since we're on a roll here. Listen to this.
And as vice president, there wasn't a single thing that I did that she couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to delegate her responsibility on everything from foreign policy to domestic policy.
Foreign policy and domestic policy sounds right to me. Borders are vice president in charge of the Ukraine conflict. She's botched them all. And the ones she didn't botch, he did. So there you go. Kamala Harris is an extension of Joe El Baboso Biden. We've already seen what she can do. If Trump was such a crazy, why didn't he get so crazy when he was in the White House? Clearly, the proof is in the pudding. We've seen what Joe and Kamala can do. No, thank you. We've seen what El Trompito can do. Thank you. Please, sir, can I have some more? Right? Sign me up for that. Low unemployment, low inflation, higher household income, and a more robust economy. Now, speaking of the economy, we'll talk about the port when we come back. There's a potential shutdown of the ports. If there's a strike, we'll get you the report on that straight ahead.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
And a strike now that would impact the ports along the East Coast and a Gulf Coast could force those costs higher for businesses and consumers. Consider this. East Coast and Gulf Coast ports handle roughly 43% of all U.S. imports. The top commodities impacted include autos and car parts. For consumers, a strike could mean higher shipping costs when prices are already elevated from the conflict in the Red Sea. Shipping costs currently 162% higher than they were just 1 year ago, and a strike could force them even higher. Business groups, as you can imagine, are very concerned. The National Retail Federation sent a letter to President Biden yesterday, signed by 177 business groups. They write this, quote, "It is imperative that the administration engage with the parties. A strike at this point in time would have a devastating impact on the economy."
That, of course, a report from Fox News about the strike and what happens. Will it go down? And we have some analysis on that as well from CBS News. I want you to listen to this because he gets a little more dire with it. Check this out.
Listen, it might take much longer for you to get the products you want because next week a potential labor strike at East and Gulf Coast ports could leave ships filled with billions of dollars worth of goods stranded. Back in June, talks stalled between the union representing dock workers, that's the International Longshoremen Association, and the group representing their employers, the United States Maritime Alliance. And that means more than 45,000 workers at 36 different ports across the East and Gulf Coasts might walk off the job next Tuesday. More than 60% of shipping traffic goes through these ports, so the expected economic impact from a strike could be significant. Consider what a week-long East and Gulf Coast strike could do. It could reduce the national gross domestic product by $4.5
you
to
get the point, folks,
$7.5
right?
billion.
This could cost us a ton of cash. Will it? I don't know. And we'll get into this a little bit more in Open Phones Across America at the top of the hour. But I'm curious. I remember this happening. I don't know. I guess it was 2022, maybe 2020. Yeah, maybe 2022. And people were thinking we weren't going to have Christmas and this was going to happen and that was going to happen. And there was probably a few things that were hard to get. But we got stuff and we had Christmas. So I don't know. I think a lot of times these threats from these large unions that are in charge of supply chains are just, they want more money. And when they get their money, then we get our stuff. It's kind of like the mob. Anyway, folks, we'll get into that in a little bit. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-482-5337. I'm Rich Valdez, coming right back.
America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And we continue our conversation. And J.D. Vance was on the campaign trail like he typically is. And he shared a couple of thoughts giving Trump a new name for El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. And that is the anti-censorship candidate. Listen to this.
I think the fundamental idea here is Republicans believe not in censorship. We believe in free speech and debate. It's one of the most important things that RFK said in his message endorsing Donald Trump is that Democrats used to be the party where if you had an idea you didn't like, you pushed back against it, you fought back against it, you criticized it. This whole idea that has taken hold in the far left of this country, that if you see a bad idea, the way to solve it is to censor it, I think it's ridiculous. Kamala Harris is the candidate of censorship. She's the candidate of using big tech to silence Americans. She's the candidate of shutting Americans up. Donald Trump is the candidate of letting us have the debate because he believes in the American people enough to know that if we have a real debate, wisdom is ultimately going to win out. That's the Donald Trump approach. It's anti-censorship, and I'm proud to stand with him on it.
Again, that's Ohio Senator J.D. Vance talking about censorship. And he mentions big tech. And big tech is always at it. And the only thing worse than big tech trying to censor is big tech combining forces with big government, right? And now we've got a really serious problem. And there's some new documents out that are showing that Facebook trained some of their officials, not their officials, officials in the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, on how to censor American speech on what they call, quote, COVID and vaccine misinformation. According to records made public by the conservative nonprofit America First Legal, Facebook opened up an end-to-end workflow allowing federal bureaucrats to flag posts for censorship. Isn't that crazy? Listen to this quote from the initial filing. The new portal dramatically increased the efficiency of the censorship machine by allowing up to 20 links at a time to be referred for censoring. This is reported by America First Legal. Each censorship request automatically generated a ticket number so that the government could track if Facebook complied with its censorship demands. Right? So this is they're twisting Zuckerberg's arm to make him a tyrant as well. Just crazy. America First Legal exposed the records that detailed the public-private censorship campaign with the litigation it brought against the CDC because of the agency's First Amendment violations for free speech. Now, according to information that they retrieved back in May of 2021, they had an onboarding presentation by Facebook that was designed for employees of the CDC to teach them about the technology platform, and it introduced these government officials to something they called government reporting system. In this system, if the government requested something, then Facebook would process that request. Isn't that something? So that's stuff that's coming out today. And again, this should be unthinkable, right? This smacks of what we saw in the case of Murphy versus, or I think it was Missouri, right? Missouri, Eric Schmidt, when he was AG there, that sued the Surgeon General. But this is crazy. It's crazy. And it's not like this is happening in isolation. We also have Google, right? Google's constantly up to no good. We've talked about this in the past, and it's like they continue to do what they do. And, you know, Google has this long history of interfering in American elections, and they favor always who? The most liberal politicians. So anyway, they were burying the campaign websites for Republican candidates. Now the search engine is now padding its results about which political candidate it puts first when it gives you the news. So it lists news articles, and I've seen this as of late. You'll put Trump assassination attempt or Trump whatever to find out what the latest news is, Trump poll, and it'll give you like something on Trump, but then it'll give you like 4 articles under it suggested about, you know, Kamala Harris this, Kamala that, Kamala whatever, or suggestions about Trump and Kamala or Trump and Harris. Just really, really interesting the way they do it. They ignore what they want and they promote whatever they feel like promoting. And just like America First Legal cracked the doors open on that CDC case, the MRC, the Media Research Center, has a project called Free Speech America, where they have researchers that are conducting research on all sorts of things. And they recently found that Google was up to its old tricks. I want to learn about what they've done with Vice President of the Media Research Center, Dan Schneider. Welcome back, sir.
Rich, it's always great to be with you. You are a great American.
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Likewise, right back at you. And let's dig into this. Let's see what's happening with with Google because it seems like every time we turn around, Google's up to their old tricks yet again.
Yeah, we've for over a year, we showed that when you tried to find any of the Republican presidential campaign's websites, because there were 16 of them at one point, that Google was erasing those campaign websites, making it impossible to find them, except for Will Hurd, the guy who never broke 1% in the polls.
Oh, yeah.
But when you look for the Democrats' presidential campaign websites, Joe Biden, he was right at the top of the heap, the first search result, followed by Marianne Williamson. But Google never would return the campaign website for RFK Jr. RFK, who is the single greatest threat to Joe Biden's renomination. Google was burying RFK's website and then also burying every single Republican except for Will Hurd. And that was over the course of a full year. We would do these searches, consistently get the exact same results. Well, Rich, as you pointed out, there's been a tactical change by Google. It's now operating differently than it did for a full year. It's finally producing Donald Trump's campaign website, but only after flooding the field with a whole bunch of really nasty, really negative articles about him. But when you try to search for Kamala Harris's campaign website, not only is it higher in search results than Trump's, but of course, the news articles above her campaign website are all very positive, or at a minimum, hide her policy views. The media is doing everything they can to help her hide her real policy views.
Dan Schneider, what kills me about this is it's almost like they don't care. It's like we're going to keep doing what we do, and if the guys at MRC catch us, great. Most people won't. What do we care?
Yeah, for a long time, Google didn't care. Frankly, for years, they sat back, fat, happy, and lazy, chuckling with contempt toward anybody who would accuse them of engaging in censorship or any of the sort of monopolistic behavior they've been doing, because they owned that Obama administration. Google lobbyists were in that White House more often than Obama himself was, and they continued to own this Biden administration, and they just thought they could get away with everything. And for a long time, they did. But the tables have now turned. We've got different state AGs. You mentioned Eric Schmidt. He was the great AG, Attorney General in the state of Missouri, and he is now in the U.S. Senate. And in Missouri, he's been replaced by Andrew Bailey, who is carrying on that torch. We had great AGs in Louisiana and Texas and Florida doing the same thing, holding Google accountable. Now, and now in the Congress, the House of Representatives is zeroing out all funding for any of that Biden censorship stuff going on. We're working with Google and other big tech giants, and Senate Republicans are now scurrying to try to figure out how they can use their committee assignments to come after Google. Google, for a long time, was getting away with all of this nonsense, but now they've got a big fat target on their back, and they are now running scared. I can tell you, they are not sleeping well tonight over at Google.
Well, amen to that. Dan Schneider, Vice President of the Media Research Center. We're going to come right back and continue a little bit of this conversation. Folks, stick with us. We're talking about censorship in the United States, and it doesn't look good.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Rich Valdez, who again will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to it.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
So Dan Schneider is our guest. He's the VP of the Media Research Center in charge of their Free Speech America program. And you guys have been looking at this stuff. I know all throughout September you were looking at things. You've done this in the past. And when you juxtapose, I guess, the previous studies you've done on Google with this most recent research you've done on Google, have you found any improvement? Has it gotten worse, or is it about the same?
Yeah, well, the good news is that Google is not completely erasing all of these Republican campaign websites, including Donald Trump's. So yeah, I think after a year of just pounding on them, they have fixed their algorithm, adjusted their algorithm so that their censorship is not as blatant. And when we first released our study right before the very first Republican presidential campaign debate, Google initially completely denied that it was burying these sites, and claimed that we had done our search in a faulty way. Well, we had published our methodology, and we called Google out for that. So they had to issue a retraction, and they came out with a different response, and they were hemming and hawing and treading water. Well, ever since then, they have ignored all of these. They've been hoping that we would just go away. But the pressure has been turned up. And as I said in the previous segment, you've got lots of state AGs and the U.S. Congress now taking action. And Google has got to show improvement. So it's attempting to, yet at the same time, you can tell from the political giving from its executives and its staff, they are the single biggest donors to Kamala Harris. They use all their corporate resources to try to help Kamala Harris. So they're still trying to do that, and at the same time trying to pretend, or at least give a semblance of honesty when it comes to how its search engine is used.
Dan Schneider, what can we, the American people, expect moving forward? I mean, thank God for the work that you guys are doing at the MRC, but should we expect Congress to get involved, for more lawsuits to be brought? Is it that kind of environment that we're in, where we can't expect things to go well unless we're fighting? Or do you think they get embarrassed by the fact that they keep getting outed by you guys?
Yeah, Rich, you played that clip of J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance truly is one of the best advocates for free speech we have in our country. If he's surpassed by anybody, it's probably RFK Jr. RFK Jr. has been a free speech purist for a long, long time. But in your clip playing J.D. Vance, J.D. started off by saying that it's the Republicans who stand for free speech. Well, I think it's different than that, because his first example was RFK, and RFK is certainly no Republican, but he's still pro-American. I think the larger lesson here that JD was referring to is that our country is now so divided. It is really those who are pro-America, pro the ideas of our nation's founding, pro-freedom, pro-individual liberty and individual rights, versus the collectivists, those who do not like America, those who support the 1619 Project, those who believe that the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the Third Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, et cetera, are wrong for America, those who believe the Constitution is bad for people. Mm-hmm. It is America versus anti-America. That's where these two parties have now fallen into. Those people, those good Democrats who used to be good, loyal Democrat voters, they are leaving that party, as that party's leadership has become so radicalized. And the Republican Party, it's not as ideological as it used to be. It is really just pro-America versus anti-America, and free speech. It's an example of this larger battle.
Really well put, Dan Schneider. Stick with me. We're going to come right back. I want to get your thoughts on what we can expect in the next month or so as we get closer and closer to November 5th, and your take on the election, the polling, and everything else. So, folks, we're coming right back with Dan Schneider, VP at the Media Research Center.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Tariffs aren't unique to President Trump. President Biden has tariffs in place. He's actually looking to potentially implement more. Where do you come out on? Is there a good tariff, a bad tariff?
Well, part of it is you don't just throw around the idea of just tariffs across the board, and that's part of the problem with Donald Trump. Frankly, I'm going to, and I say this in all sincerity, he's just not very serious about how he thinks about some of these issues. And one must be serious and have a plan, and a real plan that's not just about some talking point ending in an exclamation at a political rally, but actually putting the thought into what will be the return on the investment, what will be the economic impact on everyday people.
That, of course, is Kamala Harris, who has been dubbed Que Mala Eres on this program. And she's saying Donald Trump is not a serious candidate. Meanwhile, she's the person that, when asked more than once, what will you do about the cost of living in the United States, a question about the economy, she always responds with, I grew up in a middle-class family, and talks about her neighbor's lawn. Dan Schneider, do you think this is going to continue to fool the media and the American people?
You know, Rich, I think the polling data is showing that Kamala Harris's tactics are wearing thin. And one thing about these East Coast and West Coast snobs, I am from Kansas, Rich. I'm not one of these snobs from the coast. But I've worked for West Coast snobs. I've worked out here for a long time, and I've cautioned, people out here, do not underestimate the intelligence of people from Kansas and the Plain States and farmers. They are smart people. They know more about trade policy. They know more about tax policy than most Hill staffers do. It's their livelihoods. It's what they do. They have to know these things. And as Kamala Harris is trying to talk past the 8% in the middle who haven't decided what they're going to do, those people see what she's doing. They're not ignorant. They see that she's not answering questions, and they're getting tired of it. They see Donald Trump is answering questions. They may not like everything he says, but they're actually trusting him more.
Yeah, and this is, again, I can't wait for Election Day, honestly, because I'm with you. I see so much of their unrelenting effort to do things the wrong way, and I truly see it backfiring. And I think none of that was more evident than some clips that I played earlier. I can't play them for you now because we got a minute to go. But CNN did a piece on these little kids, and there was one little girl who said, I'd love to see, she was an African-American girl, and she said, I'd love to see a woman of color become president. Well, maybe we have time for that one. Can you play that one, Count Delacula, real quick?
It'd be good for us to have a black woman as president for the first time in history. Yeah. But my vote's kind of still on Trump.
Even the little girl wants Trump. And I think a bunch of little kids feel that way. I think if the little kids feel that way, their parents feel that way too. Dan Schneider, thank you for being here, brother. Folks, check him out at mrc.org. Dan, you are a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
You bet. All right, folks. We continue the conversation with you all, the American people, with open phone across America. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Please give me a follow, and let's keep in touch after the show. And I want to invite you to call us. It's open phones across America. The third hour of the show is a free-for-all. You get to call in and share whatever's on your mind. That's a tradition that goes back as long as I've been around, back to 1978 when Larry King started that tradition. It was continued by the late, great Jim Bohannon. And, of course, you and I are going to honor that tradition tonight as well. The phone number, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Looking forward to speaking with Americans from every corner of this fruited plain that we have, from New York all the way to Hawaii. I think we're on in Alaska. Looking forward to speaking with everybody. California, Oregon, Pittsburgh, Idaho. Let me see what we got online right now. South Carolina, Illinois, Michigan, Arkansas, Virginia, Pittsburgh in the building. We're going to get to all of your calls tonight. And if you want to get in, the line is already getting long, so make sure you get in now. And, folks, I want to just remind you a couple of things that are going on. Right, I'm a native New Yorker, and in New York, the beloved mayor, not so beloved, I'm going to say infamous, the infamous mayor, Eric Adams, elite Eric Adams, was indicted yesterday. We talked about that. It was historic in so much as we had not seen a sitting New York City mayor be indicted. Well, guess what? Today they've unsealed that, and there was multiple charges for foreign donations to his campaign, for bribery, for wire fraud, a couple of charges of wire fraud. It looks like he's in hot water. Of course, like Bob Menendez said, I will be vindicated. I am innocent. Remember Gold Bar Bob? Where's Gold Bar Bob today? I don't know. He's not even in the Senate anymore. He didn't get to finish his term. He stepped down. He's in really rough shape. So I don't know if that's going to happen to elite Eric Adams. We'll find out. I don't know that elite Eric Adams said anything against the Iranian regime. That's what it took Gold Bar Bob to get into the trouble that he got into. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Now, that was part of what was going on today. Let's see. There's some other news I wanted to share, but that's, kind of one of my favorites. And he says he's not quitting. But again, so did Gold Bar Bob. He also said that he wasn't going to be. Now, guess what? The deep state continues, right? First, they did it in New York. Now they've done it in Washington, D.C. Our good friend Rudy Giuliani was disbarred in Washington, D.C. They're trying to destroy this guy. Lucky for him, he is a national icon, a national hero. Rudy Giuliani is the truth. He is a crime fighter with an amazing record. Tough man. Held America together right after 9/11 as the outgoing mayor of New York City. Saved the city on more than one occasion. Prosecuted the mob. Prosecuted the terrorists in Colombia, the FARC, F-A-R-C. I mean, what a storied history Rudy Giuliani has, and it's an absolute disgrace what they're doing to him. Absolute disgrace. Last I saw him was his 81st birthday. I guess that was in May, end of May. And I wish him nothing but the best. It's hard to get him on this program because he does 2 TV shows right after he does his streaming stuff, and it kind of coincides with the time that I'm on the air, so it makes it difficult to get him on. But Giuliani's been on multiple times here. He's a friend of the program, and I'm a huge supporter of his. And I wish him nothing but the best. I'm really saddened by this, honestly. And let's see what else we've got. So we've got the Adams indictment. There was a very heated hearing today, the first hearing on the Trump assassination. There was a clip that we didn't play earlier. I want to play it now. And it's of the, let's see, I'll tell you exactly who it is. It was, bear with me, folks, bear with me. All right, Count Dracula, what numbers are those cuts from? I'm splashing around for dear life here. Throw me the life preserver. All right, number 12 is the one. This is the commander, Edward Lentz. He is the Butler County Emergency Services Unit. That's the SWAT team there, the head of that. And he's at this hearing on the assassination attempt on Trump oversight. And he says, at no point were we asked to deploy a sniper to the roof. Listen to this.
Across the 2 counter-assault teams, the quick reaction force, the 3 sniper teams, and support personnel, we provided a total manpower of 44 persons, exceeding the number requested by the Secret Service. At no point during the planning process was Butler County ESU asked to secure the AGR complex, nor the perimeter surrounding that area. At no point during the planning process was Butler ESU asked to deploy a sniper team to the roof of the AGR complex, and at no point in our operations plan did we ever say that we would deploy a sniper team to the roof of the AGR complex. From their positions inside the AGR building, the snipers were not able to see the roof where the shooter was located, and again, that was not within their area of responsibility.
Again, Ed Lentz, the commander of the Butler County SWAT team, on deck, ready to go, didn't get utilized. He also said prior to that at no point were there any attempts by the Secret Service to check in with them, to have a mutual command post. The whole thing was mismanaged. And again, me being a cynic, I think that's fake, phony, and fraud. I don't think they're lying. I think they're telling the truth. I just don't believe that it was a mistake. I believe that somebody somewhere was like, hey, look the other way. We'll take care of the rest. And guess what? They failed. And then they said, you idiots, can't believe you didn't get this right. Let me try it again. And it happened again. And they sucked at it again. And God bless them, right? God bless President Trump for being around these horrible assassins. It's clear that the hand of God is on Trump. Absolutely. I mean, how do these people, how do they justify any of this stuff? Anyway, bottom line here is this doesn't look good for the Secret Service. And all this does is erode the public trust in the federal law enforcement constabulary. And that's been going on since the FBI, since Director Mueller, since Russia. Not good. Not a good look at all. Anyway, we also have El Trompito calling out the administration on so many of their failures, from the border to everything else that they're doing and breaking in America. But I want to get some of your thoughts before we hit this first pause and come back and get to the rest of your calls. And let me see where we're going to go. Let's go to Van. Van is in Columbia, South Carolina on WFMV. Van, go right ahead.
Hey, Mr. Valdez, how you been?
I'm doing great, brother. Thank you.
I just want to say you do a great show, but I heard you talking earlier, man. You know, we are living in a time. I used to have a flip phone.
Me too.
My grandkids got me into a smartphone. I still don't know how to use it, but I'll tell you one thing, man. We remember the scriptures. The knowledge will be vast, and it is vast. Okay, and we are living in times where the truth is a lie and the lie is the truth. You know, the good Lord told us that, and it's very serious. I mean, if this was a movie, it'd be funny. But it's not a movie.
Right, it's real life.
Yeah, man. And you got children. I've heard about you talking about your kids, and I got children and grandchildren, and it comes a time, you know what I mean? And Mr. Valdez, you do a great show. You're so balanced, so mellow, you know. And all I got to say is pray. Just pray for this country and for our children, our grandchildren, and because the prophets said it, man. They said it thousands of years ago. There will come this time when knowledge is vast. It's too vast, and
yes, it's almost like we know so much we don't know anything at all. And we have to go back to the truth, right? You mentioned the scriptures, and for me, that's always true north. You've got to figure out what you can stand on and fight for it. Because it was, I don't know who it was. who made this quote famous, but it's attributed to many people. But if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And I believe that we have to stand for something. And you're right. As the time goes on, every election gets more and more contentious. Every election gets more and more important because so many different issues are on the line. And I want to thank you for your kind words. I appreciate the compliment on the show. I'm glad you're tuned into the show. And hopefully we're reaching people, and people are looking at things a little differently, and looking at the world and culture and society and the news and this election and everything else that we talk about, and considering new perspectives. That's always my hope. Van, God bless you, brother. I appreciate the call. WFMV, Columbia, South Carolina. South Carolina, by the way, best weather ever, right? Second only to none, actually. I'd say it's probably the best. But a close second would be North Carolina, right? It's just a little bit cooler, I feel. And good barbecue with that vinegar base in North Carolina. Anyway, Van, thank you for the call, brother. Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and a clip from El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States. El Trompito says that the federal government has screwed things up, and while they falsely accused him of family separation, it's really them that lost hundreds of thousands of children that have come through the border. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Voted best head of hair in live late night radio 6 years in a row. It's Rich Valdez.
And this is probably the worst statistic of them all. 325,000 children. Think of that. 3.5 years. She lost 325,000 children. And they're either dead, being sold into sex slavery, or just plain missing. Think of the number, 325,000. If that were a Republican instead of her, and she was the border czar, she says, well, I wasn't the border czar, she was. And tomorrow she'll make a case that, oh, she did a fairly good job. You can't say much. You can't justify it. She should save her airfare. She should go back to the White House and tell the president to close the border. He can do it with the signing of just a signature on a piece of paper to the Border Patrol. Instead, she's going there to try and convince people that she wasn't as bad as everybody knows she was. She was the worst in history.
Que mala eres, the worst in history. I think he's on to something there. Of course, that's El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, making the case that Que mala eres and Joe El Baboso Biden have done a terrible job at the border. Now, listen, some people are trying to debunk this claim, saying he's making it up. It's not real. It's fake, phony, and fraud. But I'm going to tell you, Newsweek says that this is not accurate with caveats. Well, I'm going to help them to understand their own fact check here. They claim that this is based on an August 2024 audit from the Department of Homeland Security. That, in fact, it is. It is based on that. However, this is not inaccurate, right? Because between fiscal years 2019 and 2023, ICE transferred over 448,000 unaccompanied children to the Department of Health and Human Services, in an office that they have called ORR, the Office of Refugee Resettlement. Now, after this apprehension by the Department of Homeland Security, the children are transferred to ICE, then to ORR. ORR, again, that's the Office of Refugee Resettlement, handles the care and the custody of these kids awaiting immigration hearings. Their care and custody includes placing children in shelters with sponsors, etc. Handing them over to the traffickers, handing them over from the smuggler to the next person in the next evil step, right, of this workflow that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have created with what I call the largest modern-day slave trade we've ever seen. Anyway, the numbers boil down to between 2019 and 2023, 32,000 children failed to appear for court, immigration court, right? Now you tack that on to notice to appears that went out to 291,000 children, and you do the math. It's a little over 325,000, give or take a few, right? It's a roundabout figure. But ultimately, that's what's happening. You've got 291,000 children who have not been issued a court date. Is that not problematic to you? Because it's problematic to me. Where are these kids? Why aren't they appearing in court? Who is the person that they were handed over to? We know full well that when you hear a story about a kid getting his hand stuck in a mechanical chicken separator, you can almost guarantee that this is a migrant kid that's here without his parents. And he's probably 11 or 12 years old. Think about when you were 11 or 12 years old, if you were sent across the border. Now, something else I read yesterday is that a lot of these kids are coming and they say, oh, they're exhausted from the trip. Well, yesterday, 2 days ago, a report came out that they're giving them gummies to drug them. They think they're getting a little gummy bear, and instead they're getting drugged, and that's why they're constantly asleep when they're coming across the border, either over somebody's shoulder or kind of just slumped over, and they're saying, oh, they're dehydrated, they're sick, they're whatever, we got to get them care. That's not they're high as a kite. They've been drugged because these people aren't their parents. Now, again, this is not 100% of the time that it's not their parents, but if it was one case out of 1,000, wouldn't you want to stop it? I know I would. I wouldn't want somebody's kid. I wouldn't want my kid being trafficked. I hope you wouldn't want your kid being trafficked. So that's what this ultimately boils down to. We have to make sure that we're looking out for kids. And that's something where horrifically and tragically and lamentably, Joe El Baboso Biden and Kamala Harris are doing a horrible job. And in the debate, she said that she's the only person on this stage that has prosecuted a transnational criminal. I said it before and I'll say it again. Kamala Harris, the vice president of the United States, she is a transnational criminal that is overseeing the largest underground slave trade we've ever seen in this country. It's the biggest human smuggling operation we've ever seen, and it's happening right at the southern border, facilitated by the United States government. That has to stop. And for that alone, she should be impeached. For that alone, he should be impeached. And for that alone, neither of them should ever set foot in the White House or anywhere in Washington, D.C. ever again. If you disagree with me, let me know. Give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. Of course, if you're streaming the show and you want to share it with somebody, the website for that, richvaldez.com. That's Valdez with an S. And you can always check out all of our previous episodes if there's a particular interview that you missed or something that you, a segment that you really enjoyed and you want to share with a friend. Go right to the website, richvaldez.com, and feel free to listen to it right from the website. You can stream it right from the website. Or if one of the radio stations, these wonderful radio stations that carry our program, is not able to carry it that night because of an existing agreement with a sports team or something like that, guess what? You go to richvaldez.com, you hit the little triangle, you hit play, and you can stream the show live. If you miss it, you can go back and catch a replay. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that too, and you can sign up for the podcast right at that website. So, folks, go check out the website, richvaldez.com. Sign up for the email alerts. Do whatever you can to keep in touch with me, because you never know. Somebody might want to shut me up one day and say, hey, this guy's off the air, and I'm going to want to talk to you guys. So make sure you know how to find me on Facebook, on Twitter, on every one of the social media, including Truth Social and Instagram. I like those two a lot. Folks, don't go anywhere. It's Rich Valdez, and I'm coming right back.
Now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez, live with you till 1 a.m. Eastern. It's open phones across America, and we've got a jam-packed call board, 833-482-5337. I guess We got one line open. If it's busy, just call back. We'll be moving through these pretty quickly. And I want to get your thoughts on everything that's going on, from the hackers, the Iranian hackers that they caught, to everything else. And let me see, where do we go? I want to go to Dorian. Dorian is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on KDKA. Dorian, go right ahead, sir.
Mr. Valdez, good evening. I'm a registered Democrat. My whole family were Democrats, but I have heard Kamala's same statement on all the 5 stations in Pittsburgh that they're part of the Odyssey group, and I don't believe it. No matter how many times she says it, it doesn't make it true.
Right.
and
she grew up in a middle-class household, and she liked her neighbor's lawn?
I can recite it syllable by syllable. I've heard it so many times. But the current administration's got us in the jackpot, and I'm hoping that the former President Donald Trump will be able to pull us out of it.
I'm with you, brother. And that's really what it comes down to. And anybody who makes any other excuse about this, they're just not paying attention, right? They're really just not being honest with themselves. This is the case, right? Look, like you just said it. You're a registered Democrat. You're voting for Trump. Every human I know should be voting for Trump. Not because Trump is fantastic. I think he's fantastic, but you don't have to agree with me. You just have to realize we love America. These people are in bad shape. Their bad ideas aren't working, and they're doubling down instead of trying to do the right thing. And it's not working. It's not working. They're breaking things that were working. It's just bad. It's very bad. Dorian, I appreciate the call. Thank you so much for the call and for listening to the show, and I really do appreciate it. And we're going to continue. From there, we go to, let's see if we can go across the country. Let's go to Pat in Sedona, Arizona, streaming the show on richvaldez.com. Pat, go right ahead.
Hey, Rich, how you doing? Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
And I do believe you have the best head of hair in all
in live
radio.
late night radio.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Hey, my friend, something just came across the news wire about a day ago. I didn't get on last night. I wanted to talk about this. The Senate, which is in Arizona, has now gone in front of the Attorney General of the state with evidence of 74 ballots. These were absentee ballots that were sent out and sent back. Now, what they do
I think I saw that in the news. You're talking about like 74,000 ballots, right?
Yeah, 74,000 ballots. And they were sent weren't sent out. They were sent back, but they were never sent out. So they were not true voters. It was like, they were trying to do something, and they did do it. Now, here's the thing. I'm not sure if that was to do with the election of governor or the president, but it seems like it was the 2020, so they were probably referring to the presidential election and the governor's election, which were the same night, and which was a big thing of controversy in our state. And I just wanted to know if you hear about that, because if that is proven, now it has been proven, because the state Senate, which is, I have to give a disclaimer, are Republicans. It is a Republican, barely a Republican Senate in our state. It's the only thing that's really saving our state from our governor, who's, I don't know, she's like Kamala Harris. She's really bad. And she's caused a lot of
and that's
trouble.
what I call her in Spanish, right? Que mala eres, how bad you are. I just want to chime in real quick and let you know something, because I've seen a lot of things coming out of Arizona, Pat, starting with just yesterday. The elections official who oversees this stuff, who certifies the elections, is alleging fraud after he was beat in a primary contest for sheriff. So in Pinal County. So I think it's just it's very interesting to see what's happening, right? And this is what they were reporting in the Washington Post, which you take with a grain of salt. But there was also a report that came out about the non-citizens voting, And you're talking about an error that could affect the eligibility of nearly 100,000 voters. And this is a big deal. You had the Arizona Supreme Court ruling about 98,000 people whose citizenship is unconfirmed, but said they're going to be able to vote in this upcoming election. That was the state Supreme Court that allowed that to happen. So, I mean, lots of things are happening. The good news is you've got people like Abe Hamadeh, Carrie Lake, and others that are on the ground really beating the drum for liberty and to do what's right. And a media that's actually working, right? You do have people that are putting this stuff out into the ether, right? So that people are aware of what's going on. And that's part of it. Now, there's an old saying, a friend of mine in Oregon always used to quote it: daylight is the best disinfectant. And that's the truth. When things see the light of day, you begin to make some changes. Sometimes you just have to expose things. Not always. There's certain things you could expose all you want. They're going to keep going. Like saying there's a corrupt swamp in Washington. Yes, there is. It's going to take a lot more than shedding light on things. But I get where you're saying. And in this particular case, I'll look into it more and I'll see what I could let you know. But bottom line is we've got to do better. We've got to do better. I think we have a Republican Party that is working hard to try and combat election interference. We've got America First Legal that is out there swinging hard against these things. You've got the campaigns that are swinging hard. You've got a lot of volunteers out there. You've got a lot of organizations that are really putting their best foot forward. And if there was a time for the American people to win, for the rule of law to win, for the good guys to win, this is it. So we better get it right. Pat in Sedona, Arizona, streaming the show, richvaldez.com. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Let me see. Where do I want to go? I want to go to Tim. Tim is calling us from Marion, Illinois on WGGH. Tim, go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Jesus bless you, Rich.
Thank you, sir.
I just, Trump has had his problems. He had extramarital affairs, and of course, Democrats jump all over that.
Yeah, and I believe those are alleged. I don't know of any that were accurate. The Stormy Daniels stuff that they put out there, she herself said that she was involved in this in a deposition, that she did that because she wanted the payday. So to my knowledge, I don't know about him being unfaithful. I know he's been divorced. I don't know, but he's been unfaithful. But these things are out there, and they try to make them true. And again, I can't prove it one way or the other. I would prefer to give the benefit of the doubt, but you're right. It's a fallen world that we're in, and there's a lot of ugly stuff out there.
But what about Kamala and Willie Brown? How about what Judge Joe Brown said about
boy,
Kamala?
He ripped her to shreds, didn't he? Yeah, I remember hearing that.
Oh my lands! My mouth was so wide open, I was catching flies.
Well, I mean, it was shocking, right? Judge Joe Brown is a real consummate professional. I'm going to use the term OG, right? He's one of these old timers that you respect. You just respect the guy. He's always done a good show, and he's a respectable television personality and legal mind. And when he comes out and says the things that he said, it was like, wow. I was with you catching flies, and I don't think any of that stuff is disputed. I think, he did get divorced. I think he did have a relationship with Harris, and she acknowledges it and kind of moves on. And he did an exclusive interview with Newsmax not that long ago, maybe a month ago, with Rob Finnerty, great journalist, by the way. And I watched it, and I thought it was a really well-done interview. And the guy's 90 or 91 years old, and let me tell you, sharper than Biden and Kamala put together. He did a fantastic job, Willie Brown. And he still has it. Let me tell you, he still has it. And he said the nicest things about her. He really did. And again, I don't blame him, right? It seems like they had a good time together. So I hear what you're saying. People are always beating up Trump for doing this, that, and the third, and he's the bad guy, and he's the worst guy ever. But yet nobody wants to call out Kamala. And I think you're right. And that's part of the media double standard that exists, that I'm here to help, and you're here to help, and we're all doing our part to make sure that we break through the noise and bring the truth. That's all we can do. Tim in Marion, Illinois, Jesus bless you too, my brother. WGGH in the building. Folks, we're going to pause right here. You can get your calls in at 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night, your home for the best election coverage.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez with you live till 1 a.m. Eastern Time. And the phone number here is 833-482-5337 if you want to get in touch with us, 833-4-VALDEZ. Now, I want to get on with your calls because a lot of people want to get in on the conversation. And let's go to Melvin calling us from Charlottesville, Virginia on WINA. Melvin, go right ahead.
How's it going there, buddy? You're doing
Wonderful,
a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Just hearing you the other night and you talking to one of your guests and just curious, how concerned are you with this guy Soros and with his plan to get all the illegals to be registered by the time the presidential election, the voting comes in?
Well, here's the thing. I think there's multiple. How concerned am I? I'm one of these people. I bury my head in the sand like an ostrich. I refuse to live in fear. I look at the threat, I see what's going on, and I do what I can to make sure I can fix it. And I realize my limits. That's my perspective, my personal view on things. Does it mean that it's a serious problem? It sure is. I don't believe, and maybe it's my own naivete, but I don't believe that we're going to be able to register all of these millions and millions and millions of people. However, we had Dr. Jerome Corsi on the other day that said that there's a mathematical algorithm that's built into some of the election software that could, in effect, add hundreds of thousands of voters in multiple districts across the country of people that don't even exist. Just a name, a voter, right? So you wouldn't even have to register these people. So that is of concern. But again, I've already done what I can do in that regard, right? I've sounded the alarm. We've had Corsi on the show. He's spoken about it. He's put the information out there so people can check it out. Beyond that, there's not much I can do. That means the Trump people know about it. The FBI knows about it. Everybody and their mama knows about this stuff. And I'm a big believer in prayer. I'm a big believer in what will happen is going to happen. And I'm okay with that. So, that's why I like to go hard, right? You go as hard as you can. This way you've left it all on the field. And you can't say, well, I shoulda, coulda, woulda. No, you did it all. That's kind of how I approach this stuff. Now, I don't believe that that's going to be the case everywhere. I think this is probably going to be the most watched election we've ever had by you, by me, by everybody else that gives a darn, right? Because we had so much irregularity and malfeasance and miscalculations and mail-in ballots and phony drop boxes and all sorts of stuff that happened in the last election. And it created this perfect storm for the cover that they needed to do what they did. So we eliminate that. And I think the biggest part of that was COVID. COVID not being here and people not, yelling at you, hey, put a mask on, you're killing my grandmother. That's huge, right? The fact that we're able to go to church again, the fact that we can go to the movies, we can go on a date, you can hang out with people at a bar, whatever it is you want to do. We can do those things again. That wasn't the case in the last election. And that's a very big distinction that we have to, I think, hold on to and remember. So am I not concerned? No, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the purchase of these radio stations. I'm concerned about all of it. But I think ultimately what is going to happen is going to happen. I accept what happens, and we keep fighting because that's what we do, right? This isn't, for me, this is not a one-time deal and not a one-shot deal. This is something I've been doing this for 2 decades, and I'll do it for the next 2 decades if God allows me to do it. And it doesn't matter who's in the White House for me. You know, I mean, and I shouldn't say it that way. Of course, I want Trump in the White House. I want the country to be well. But I'm saying I'm going to speak about it either way. We're either going to say, you know, great job to so-and-so for doing great things, or a bad job to so-and-so for doing bad things. And we're going to keep calling it out because that's what we do. And that's what, you know, Limbaugh did and what Levin does and Curtis Sliwa and my buddy John Batchelor and the people that have shown me the way in radio. We keep going no matter what. And that's part of what I try to impart to everybody listening is we just got to keep it moving. Thank you, Melvin in Charlottesville, Virginia, WINA. God bless you. Let us continue. Actually, I'll take a pause right here. We'll come back and we'll do the speed round.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. It's the speed round. Keep your comments to about 30 seconds or so. Let's go very quickly. Where am I starting here? Starting with Max in La Crosse, Wisconsin. WIZM. Max, quickly go for it.
Hi, I just kind of want to bring up the ties, maybe the southern border and letting the immigrants through with the missing children, and then also with.
All right, Max, we're out of time there. Thank you for your call. My hair has stunned him. Let us continue. Where do we go from there? We go to Ron in Hoka, Minnesota, WIZM as well. Go right ahead.
Hey, how are you?
Wonderful, thanks. Quickly.
You were talking about the children that are missing from 2019 to 2023?
Yep.
Trump was president from 2019 to January of 21.
Yeah, the problem is they don't go missing until they have a court date scheduled. And the court dates were all scheduled after that happened, right? Because there's a backlog of immigration judges. So they're put on like a 24-month waiting list. So even if in 2021 or 2019 they came in, they wouldn't be checked off as missing because they would not have missed their court date until 2 years later, which obviously comes after Trump was already out of office. And it makes sense, right? He wouldn't go out there and say all these things that would implicate him some way. So that makes sense to me. Thank you for your call. I appreciate it. Let's see. What else do we got here? We've got Andrew in Clinton, Illinois, WHOW. Go right ahead.
Good evening, as always, Mr. Valdez. Hey, I know you dub Kamala Harris on the show, but I'd like to offer an alternative nickname for her, considering we call it El Baboso, Biden El Baboso, which, by the way, it's going to be the only bad thing about him leaving office is we don't get to hear that term anymore.
Right.
Perhaps for Kamala Harris, we should call her La Camaleon, the chameleon, because of her frequent changes on policies.
Right,
and
the flip-flocking and the way she is quite a chameleon. That's funny. We're going to put that one in consideration. If I can remember it, I'll definitely give it a shout-out. Let's go to Jim in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Jim, go right ahead.
Hey, great show. I'll just tell you this. I've followed every election since 1960 because I'm 72 and I started watching it in 60. I'll just make a prediction. Every time except for Obama when he won re-election, it's the economy, and we have another addition to that, the immigration. I don't see her beating him on independence. I think he'll win. But I'm afraid it'll be stolen like in Pennsylvania.
Could be. Listen, Pennsylvania is definitely a question. Wisconsin, definitely a question. There's a lot of them out there that are questionable. But Trump is doing great on them, and I think he typically underperforms in the polls. So I feel good about it. I really do. Hopefully it's not something that's going to go blow up in our faces. Anyway, Jim, thanks for the call, brother. Take care, good night, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.